Tonight's show is with Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb, who is running in the Republican primary against Kari Lake for U.S. Senate. Sheriff Lamb was first elected in 2016. He won again in 2020. He began a career in law enforcement just a little bit later in life. He's a husband, a father, and a grandfather. Sheriff Lamb, thank you so much for coming in here on Newsmaker.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you were just supposed to debate Kari Lake, and she didn't show up. She chose not to debate you. Why do you think that is?
You know, look, like I said in the debate, I don't really get into why people do what they do. You know, I can only worry about what I'm doing. And I think that's what the people of Arizona expect me to do. I saw it as an opportunity to really present my case to the people of Arizona of why I think I'm best for the job, what experience I bring, the qualifications I bring, especially as it relates to the issues we're dealing with, like border, crime, economy, having run a large budget. Those are all issues that are really strengths of mine, and it gave me an opportunity to stand in front of the people of Arizona and tell them about those strengths. And so I was going to be there no matter what. And like I said at the debate, I think this is a job interview, and I think we owe it to the people to show up. You know, as a guy who runs an agency with over 600 employees, I don't think I've ever hired anybody that didn't show up for their interview.
So do you think that the fact that she didn't show up says a lot about more her than necessarily you and where you are in the campaign right now?
What I hope is that anybody who tuned into that saw that I was there for them. Because I want them to know that I'll be there for them in Washington, D.C. as well, just like I've been there for the people of Pinal County for the last 8 years, just like I've been there for the employees I represent at the sheriff's office. I think Americans want somebody that's going to show up, that's going to be in the game, that's going to fight for them, that's going to protect God, family, freedom, and the Constitution. And it's not just about the Republican Party. That's what I loved about the clean elections. This was for Republicans, independents, and Democrats, an opportunity to view the candidates that are running for this race.
Yeah, and because she didn't show up, you had 30 minutes all by yourself to
It was
talk.
Great. I had a ton of talking time.
Yeah. So we're going to get a little bit more into the primary and your race with Kari and some of the polling, but I just want to talk first off your background. You were born in Hawaii. Talk about your family a little bit and just what people should know about you if maybe they don't know anything about you right now.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of opportunities to talk about ourselves, you know. I was born and raised in Hawaii, but my family were settlers of Arizona. They've been here for a long time. My dad's from Chandler, went to Chandler High. I ultimately went to Chandler High School, but I spent a lot of time. I was born and raised in Hawaii. We lived in the Philippines. We lived in Panama when I was in high school, and then after high school, I was able to serve a mission for my church in Argentina. So I really have gotten an opportunity to see a lot of the world. I've seen poverty, I've seen inflation, I've seen a lot of the different things that we as Americans oftentimes take for granted. And I think that upbringing has really given me a different view of what America is, because I've seen it from other people's views, other standpoints, and I see that America's great. This is where freedom abounds, and I don't want to lose that. This is the Alamo of freedom, and my family and I were committed to protecting it, and we're trying to do it in the best way we think we can. You know, up until now, the sheriff has been one of the best ways to do it. Like you said, I got in at 34 years into law enforcement. I was 34 years old when I got into it, and I've loved that profession, but there's only so much I can do as a sheriff. These are issues that have to be fought on a national level, and that's why I'm running for the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, so national level, that's what you feel like you can serve more, serve the people better anyway, by going to D.C., is that right?
Well, I feel like we can address the issues that we're dealing with. There's a way to serve the people, and I've done it for the last 8 years. In the county, I protected people during COVID. You know, so we're not doing the lockdowns. We're not doing the mask mandates. We're not doing the vaccine mandates. And, you know, now with time, it's proven to be the right choices. What I think Americans and Arizonans want are elected officials who will honor their oath to defend and protect the Constitution and the people's constitutional rights, and that will serve them in the way that represents the people that they represent. You know, as a sheriff, I represent Republicans, Democrats, and independents. We've successfully done that for now in my 8th year. And I think that Arizonans and Americans are kind of tired of the politics. What they want are representatives. They want true elected officials. And I think I've given them a good track record over the last 8 years to show just how I represent them. And I look forward to taking that same enthusiasm and energy and love of freedom in America to Washington, D.C. But at the same time, the courage that it's going to take to fix this country and to really make the tough decisions that we need to make to get our economy back under control, to secure our border, to hold people accountable that are breaking the law.
Let's talk about the border, because there's a lot to cover when we do talk about that. Knowing what you know about the border, what in your opinion needs to be done right now? And aside from the Biden executive order that was just signed a couple of weeks ago.
Look, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The Trump-era policies were working very well. I was a sheriff under President Trump, and I've been a sheriff under Joe Biden. Night and day difference. And it really changed the day after President Biden took over. And so what we need to do is go back to those Trump-era policies. And what are those? Let's finish building the wall. Let's close those gaps. We have fencing that is sitting there that we paid for that has not been put up. We owe it to the American people to put it up. We need to use the technology that's in place. We need to take the handcuffs off of Border Patrol. Let them do their job. Let them enforce Title VIII, which says you can't come into this country illegally. We need to reinstate the Remain in Mexico program. That's a great program because Mexico is deemed a safe country. So while we do not have a third Safe Country Act here with Mexico, I think that those folks are safe to wait in Mexico until they have an opportunity to have their asylum claim heard by a judge.
Even with the cartels, though, because I mean the cartels, right? They're controlling the border? Are they ultimately safe if the cartels are in control along the border? You
know, this is a big misconception a lot of people have, that the second they cross the border, the cartels have no bearing on their lives. That's just not true. Many of these people owe the cartels. They're coming here on credit. The cartels are then using them in labor. They're putting them in the sex trade. That's the women, the children. They're working this. What they owe the cartels, they're working that off here in America as well. So to think that they're safe as soon as they cross the border from the cartels is naive. The reality is the cartels have a huge footprint here in our country. They continue to drive the sex market in this country for women and children. They drive the drug market, and they have a very strong foothold in our country. And that's why we need people that understand how powerful the cartels are and where their business is and what it's going to take to uproot them from our lives as Americans.
How do we do that? I mean, how do you get a cartel under control when they're on the Mexico side of the border?
Great question. What we do is we declare them the terrorists that they are. These are terrorists. They are transnational criminal organizations, not just in Mexico, not just in America, in 54 different countries. So we need to treat them as the terrorists they are. They're killing Americans every day with fentanyl poisonings. So what we do is we declare them terrorists. We work with Mexico to get them under control, to defeat them, to really just eliminate them. But we have to do it with Mexico as a partner. But as long as we're weak, and what we saw with the debate showed the weakness that we have currently at the top levels of our government, we need that strength back in. Mexico needs to see that we have strength and that we're willing to deal with this problem once and for all.
You know, if you were a member of Congress and you were elected and there was this bipartisan deal that was agreed upon, Senator Sinema fought for it like crazy. Other Republicans signed on, and then Trump made some phone calls, and it was killed. What is your take on that? And do you feel like, there's all this talk that Congress should do something? They did do something, and then nothing happened.
I hear that, but that's just not true. And President Trump may have made phone calls, but it was a bad bill. It was not a good bill.
Why was it a bad bill?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. One reason is it had $2.3 billion going to NGOs that are already aiding and abetting in the trafficking of humans. There was another $9 billion going through the State Department that would ultimately go to the UN, which would fund migration into this country. There was other laws that said it would allow for 5,000 people to come in every day. If you can stop it at 5,000, you can stop it at 0, right? That's the acceptable number. I could go on and on.
You're saying 0 is the acceptable
number. 0 is the acceptable number. It's illegal to come into this country, so the acceptable number should be 0. Those are just 3 things. Another one was, if you got 75 miles past the border, then you were okay. It was like you were free and clear. Well, that puts you right in the middle of my county. I don't want these people running up into my county and then all of a sudden saying, look, I made the right distance. I'm only giving you a few examples of why this wasn't good. Majority of the Border Patrol agents will tell you it wasn't good. Even the ones that were endorsing it thought we can change it once it's passed. But they didn't like it as it was either. There was a lot of issues they had with it. It wasn't a good bill. We need to look at much more like H.R. 2, which the Congress passed, but then Senate sat on. That's a much better bill as it relates to border security. This was a political play. The Democrats knew they attached it to global funding through Ukraine, through Israel. They made that really the primary piece of it. The border was only 20 million of that. And what they knew is that the Republicans weren't going to pass it, and they were going to go back later on and say, see, we did something, but the Republicans didn't vote it in. The reality was it wasn't a good bill. It shouldn't have passed. We can do better for the American people, and we need to do better for the American people. I would not be part of that bill. We need much better bills to go through.
You wouldn't have. Okay. For the people who are here currently and they're undocumented, Trump has been talking about that they would deport people. What is your take on that? And it's estimated, Pew Research, nonpartisan, says it's about 11 million people. Is that even possible?
Let me give you a different view of it. Do we tolerate people breaking the law and then not holding them accountable? Right. That's what this is. You're basically saying we're not going to hold people accountable that broke the law. That's as if we knew somebody was robbing a store and then we just said, hey, you know, it's too difficult to hold them accountable, so we're not going to do it.
So hypothetical, if someone's been here for 20 years, or let's say that they're a DACA recipient, you would support deporting them?
No, I think what we need to do is remove the people that have come in here over the last few years. We need to this is where Congress and Senate come in. Okay. They need to pass common sense immigration reform that deals with the issues we're dealing with on immigration. We have a border security problem as well. I think they oftentimes get meshed together, and they do, but there is a border security problem. We're letting people that are terrorists into this country. We're letting fentanyl in this country. We have to secure our border. Where Congress and Senate comes in as well is coming up with comprehensive immigration plans that we can actually go off of. They're not doing that right now. Yeah. But in the meantime, if you broke the law, it doesn't matter if you came in 10 years ago, 20 years ago, if you came into this country illegally, we cannot, as a law-abiding citizen country, say that's okay. So there has to be some level of you broke the law and you have to be removed from the country. And we're going to have to provide a way for people that truly will be beneficial to our country to come into this country.
Yeah, I mean, our economy, I mean, as we know in Arizona, we do have a lot of undocumented people here in Arizona, and they're helping our economy. But they've been here for some time.
And this is why I want to be part of it. Because I understand, look, you go down to Nogales. There's 1,000 trucks that come through a day that bring produce into our country and into other parts of North America. Between October and April, down in Yuma, they produce and ship 97% of all leafy greens throughout not just America, the United States, but all of North America. So yes, there is a lot that has to be taken into consideration, which is why we need a proven border person who understands all aspects of the border, the immigration piece, the border security piece, the trade that we have with Mexico, the workers that come across and work the fields in Yuma. Those are all pieces that we need to take into consideration. And this is what the expertise that I bring to the table is. I understand that part of it. I'm the guy that goes and finds these people that are being smuggled by the cartels. You look at their faces when they just spent weeks traversing the desert, dealing with the cartels, paying their life savings to the cartels, only to be caught at the very last moment. I mean, they're devastated. Yeah. And they're being abused by the cartels, and the cartels are taking advantage of our policies here in this country, of Joe Biden's policies, of the left's policies. And the victims are the American people that whose lives are being lost to fentanyl. Our economy is the victim. We've got people coming from all over the world that are being victimized by the cartels because of our policies. We owe it to not just Americans, we owe it to the world to fix our immigration and our border, because what is being left is the cartels are making money, and there's a whole ton of victims left behind because of these open border policies.
All right, Sheriff Lamb is going to stick around for the second segment of Newsmaker, so keep it right here, and we'll be right back with him. Welcome back to Newsmaker. I'm Ellen McNamara in for John Hook. Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb, who is running for U.S. Senate, joins me again here for this second segment. Jan Brewer, former Governor Jan Brewer, has been making a lot of headlines lately. And she was on this program not too long ago, and she talked about the race between you and Kerry. So I wanted to play this soundbite so you can listen to that. And I want to get your reaction after it plays. Let's play that.
I have we met Sheriff Lamb twice, and I'm very impressed with him. I know Kerry Lake. We were somewhat knowledgeable of each other and friends for a long time. And but I am very concerned about what direction she was going. I think she's trying to do a reverse on it. But I don't know if that's going to happen or not. There's a lot of people that are unhappy with her. They don't think that she is a truth teller and that she has changed her opinion on certain things. She goes to different rallies. She says different things to different audiences. So it's very, very difficult. But the bottom line is whoever we elect, and we have got to be sure that they beat the Democrat come November. And right now, the polling is showing that Kerry is way down in all the different brackets. So it's a difficult situation. Sheriff Lamb is a very qualified candidate, very personable, really cares about the state of Arizona, has a lovely family, and he is, of course, out there working and raising money. So we're just all going to have to sit back and see.
So that's pretty good. I mean, those are pretty nice comments.
Thank you, Governor Brewer. She's a great woman. I voted for her when she was governor. Thought she did a great job as governor. I have met her a few times and have been very impressed. Just such a personable woman, and I'm just thrilled that she would say those things. And you know, the poll after poll does show that we have the best chance of beating Ruben Gallego in the general election. And I agree with her. I mean, I think that we need to look at what are the qualifications. We're really in a tough time in this country, and we're looking at hiring one of the most important positions in not just our state, but in this country. And we've got to make sure that we've got people with the right experience. And I really, if I didn't think I had it, I wouldn't be in this race. I know that we've got issues with the border. There is nobody more experienced with the border. I've run a large agency, a large budget that I balance, I stay within. Imagine that, a political guy who actually tries to stay under budget, which we're going to do this year too. And then just the rule of law, just understanding the crime and where the federal government's role is or isn't, and where the state's role is. And so I think that experience is what the people of Arizona are looking for, and they're looking for that proven conservative. Okay,
we talked about the polling, and the last poll that I could find with you and Kerry, that was back in May, and it had you down significantly by about 20%. What's your reaction to that? I mean, again, this is a pretty old poll, and I think when Governor Brewer comes out and says something like that, I think that some Republicans might be looking at you a little bit differently.
Well, the funny thing about that is that same pollster also said that I didn't stand a chance of winning my sheriff's race 8 years ago, and we ended up winning that race 63 to 37%. What we have done is a lot of internal polling, and we've had a much larger sampling, and we're only asking one question through a third party: who you voting for the U.S. Senate. And we had 4,000 people respond, and we were at worst 50-50, and in some areas of Maricopa County, we were winning as high as 63%.
So you think you can win?
Oh, absolutely. I don't get into things if I don't think I can win. And I mean, I thought that this was a winnable race from the beginning, and no matter who got in, we thought that we were the right person for it. And our polls are keep telling us that's it. And not just the polls. Like Governor Brewer said, we're all over the state. We're showing up to all these different events. And what we have seen in our polling is consistent with what I have seen on the ground. I don't know what the disconnect is in these other polls, but hopefully he's wrong again.
Yeah. Governor Brewer, she has also been pretty vocal about moving on from the election integrity platform, just the stolen election rhetoric. And she said complaining about the rules every time we come up short is not a recipe for advancing a conservative agenda. So in your opinion, yes or no, was the 2020 election stolen from Donald Trump?
Look, I testified in Congress. There's fraud in every election. And the next question I got was, do you have evidence of large-scale material fraud? The only thing I'm responsible for right now is Pinal County. And we didn't have that large-scale material fraud in Pinal County. But what I do is I agree with Governor Brewer. What happened in 2020, how's that helping us today? We've got to do what we can to ensure that we are doing the best we can to ensure that we're going to have fair elections in this election. But the reality is 60,000 Republican ballots did not vote for governor or senator the last time around. There was 74,000 ballots where people wrote things like Goofy and Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse. There was 152,000 ballots where people voted for legitimate write-in candidates. And only 54% of Republicans returned their early ballots. It went up to 61% the day of the election. Those are numbers that are going to be tough to win if that's how Republicans are showing up to vote. Kimberly Yee won by 300,000 votes.
Yeah.
So it shows you that the votes are there. What I'm trying to do is be a candidate that not only captures all Republicans and unifies this Republican Party, because we've been broken, but not only that, we can reach across and bring those independents, which I think are going to be one of the most important cross-section of voters this time around, making sure that independents want to vote for me as well. And I think we've done a good job of that over the last year and a half, is really just staying within why I'm running, what my expertise and qualifications are, and then ultimately, here's a novel idea. Let the people choose.
So, but yes or no, you wouldn't say if this election was stolen from Donald Trump?
Do I think Joe Biden got 81 million votes? No. No, I don't. And not with what I saw, but look, I can't prove it. I'm in the world of what you can prove. It's not what you feel or what you think. I live in the world of what can I prove in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the burden of proof that I live with. And people, when they look at the sheriff, when I say something, they expect that I should be able to prove that. And so I think that I go back to that. It's what I can prove. I wish I could have found proof that maybe said otherwise, but I couldn't. I couldn't find that large scale. But we definitely got to do better in our elections because Republicans, Democrats, and independents aren't comfortable with how elections are being run.
The 2022 election with Kari Lake, was that stolen for her race for governor?
Well, I think I just gave you a lot of numbers just now that show that even with the fraud, we could have won. Even if there was fraud in some way, shape, or form, I think there always is, like I said, but we left a lot of votes on the table. We did, you know, and Kimberly Yee shows that. Her election shows that. And
fraud was never proven in court. I just want to make that very clear. Abortion, another big issue. We don't have a ton of time to get to it. Obviously, you know, Roe v. Wade was overturned, and Arizona right now we have the 15-week ban. There's no exception for rape or incest. What is your take right now on where our state is in the abortion issue? Well, look, I'm pro-life. I think that the Dobbs decision was appropriate, sending it back to the states. I want to make sure that voters know there is a very aggressive and extreme and not a good ballot measure that's coming out this year. And I would hope that anybody listening today would vote it down. Republicans in the fall. Republicans, Democrats, and independents all think it goes way too far because it does. What it does is it allows for the people to take the life of an unborn child all the way up until the day of birth. Too extreme. We've got, it'll allow a trafficker to take their victim to a clinic and get an abortion without notifying law enforcement or anybody else. And even more egregious, especially as a law enforcement guy, it would allow maybe a coach or a family member to rape a child and then take them in and get an abortion without having to notify the parents or law enforcement. I don't think there's anybody in their right mind who thinks those are appropriate measures. So that bill needs to be shot down. But as a law enforcement guy, I've spent my career defending life, the life of men, the life and health of women, teenagers, children. I'm not going to reverse course now. I'm more concerned about my meeting with my maker than I am about winning an election. But here's what I ask. Do not let them make you be a single issue voter. They're playing on emotions right now by pushing this abortion out. The reality is this administration, you know, Ruben Gallego has rubber stamped a lot of these decisions. They're failing in every category. They're failing in the economy. They failed in Afghanistan. They're failing on a foreign policy level. They're failing at the border. They're failing with crime. They're failing in every way, shape, or form. So please, whether we agree, and we're never all going to agree on the abortion issue, right? I think we all agree with that. What you cannot do is let them make you a single issue voter, and that's what they want. They want you to focus on one issue and forget about the failures on so many other levels. And what I'm asking citizens of Arizona to do is understand that we may have different points of view on this, but we cannot let them make us single issue voters. But I'm pro-life, and I've always been pro-life. Sheriff Lamb, thank you so much for coming in and
Thank
spending
you.
time. I know that this was a long
Such a
interview.
pleasure.
I really appreciate your time.